Welcome to Amazing Days of Michael and Miriam. Before I say anything else, let me say this. The Bible says, without God, you can do nothing. And it also says, neither eye hath seen, nor entered into the mind of man. Let me start that over again. Neither eye hath seen, nor ear heard, nor entered into the imagination of man what God has in store for those who love Him. One more. Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. So is there any doubt that we should keep His commandments? Well, we should be trying pretty hard. And once again, King David said, as long as there's breath, there's hope. Having said all this, in just a moment, I'll start my video and tell you about my plans, because I think at 68 years old, life is still exciting. It's had its downturn. I've spent about a year and a half now of trying to recuperate from a very bad fall and an injury to my spine and my hip and my knee and my foot, and I was sick, and so I was disabled. I was unable to walk at all for a solid year. I came back stateside from the Philippines. I left my wife there to keep our household up, and I've been here. I've been getting medicine, having tests taken and stuff, and I'm starting to get better a little bit. Almost every day I'm a little bit better. And so I've got a plan, and I'd like to share that with you. I'm excited.
Good afternoon, guys. Let's fold our clothes today. Dami. Ito, guys, tingnan mo. Yan, oh. Aming kalat, no? Topic kita yan na, guys. Kaya daming mga damit natin nakahangin. Let's fold. Kapit tayo. Fold. That's so many folding clothes. That's so many nothing dresses. Bye.
Okay, here's what's going on. A few days ago, I had a run-in with the devil, and I can no longer stay here. After August 15th, just a few weeks away. So here's my situation. I'm only drawing $140 or $1,450 a month on Social Security. We have to split that between my wife and myself. She actually lives pretty good on a little less than half of the paycheck, the Social Security. On $650, give or take a little bit, whatever the exchange is, I always send her 40,000 pesos, which is right now probably under $650. On 40,000 pesos, she pays all of our bills. We owe money for a refrigerator and for a freezer, or actually for just the freezer now, and a personal loan that we took out. She's paying on that. She buys plenty of groceries for herself. She's able to go out a little bit with her niece and her her niece's children and have a meal on occasion, and pays the rent and electricity. She's got air conditioning and washing machine, all that good stuff. So she's fine on 40,000, or just call it $650 a month. She lives fine. So there again, people are always asking, "Oh, how much does it cost to live in the Philippines?" For her to live as a local by herself without me there gobbling up half the groceries, she can live on 650. And so both of us together, we've got more than that coming in, but we could live fine. No frills, you don't go out and eat every day, maybe a couple times during the month, and watch a lot of television, go for walks, go do things. Plenty of, you can afford transportation. It costs hardly anything to catch a little three-wheel or a tricycle, tuk-tuk. So anyway, for about $1,000 a month, both of us can live fine because we know how. If you're somewhat thrifty, you don't have any bad habits, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't waste money, you can do it. 2 people on 1,000, 1 person, she does absolutely fine on $650 a month. So, but the difference is I'm here. I'm here in the United States. I came back here to recover. Well, just before I got hurt, we had spent the last of our savings, and I was getting ready to come back stateside and work for a few months and money back up again to help stretch our dollars, so to say. So let's see. Yeah, we spent the rest of our savings before I got injured, and that was about 1.5 years ago. And I split my check with her, and I pay $400 a month just for a little room, and it's got a little refrigerator in it, and I've got access to the restroom, of course, the bathroom, take a shower, and I come out and cook and stuff, and I've got a TV in there. So I live okay, and but it takes everything. After I buy groceries, I really don't have a dime left, and I don't have quite enough money to make it the rest of the month. So it's been pretty tight, and it's not something that I can't keep juggling that for a lot longer anyway. Well, I'm getting better. And I had an epiphany. When, like I said, I had a little dance with the devil, and not going to be able to stay here much longer at all. A few more weeks, tops. And if nothing else happens, a few more weeks. And I'm not going to be able to find another place. I'm not healed up enough to be able to get out and go to work yet. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start another great adventure. I've had so many adventures in my life, I've lost count. And I could tell stories after stories, and I'm going to start doing that. I'm going to start sharing some of my stories with you of my past experiences. So like I said, I had an epiphany. And what I'm going to do, since I am able to hobble pretty good, I can limp severely without a cane. I get around for a while. It's very tiring, but if I use a crutch, I could go a long, long way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pack my bags, and I'm going to do what we agreed to. I'm going to go ahead and leave. By law, I don't have to, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I need to, sometimes things happen and put you to sail in the right direction. And so God is amazing how He does things. He works in our lives. There's never a time He doesn't. You might think so, but there's not. And it's kind of up to you whose side you're on. And so I'm trying to get back and just live a good Christian life. And I'm just in limbo here anyway. I'm not doing anything for anybody. I am recovering a little bit, very slowly, but I'm going to move on. So here's my plan. It's probably been 30 something years since I've traveled by bus. I used to come down from Alaska with tens of thousands of dollars, literally stupid enough to carry it on me in a money belt, and my wallet. My wallet was so thick I couldn't sit down good. It caused me back problems because the lump was so big on one side. And I would travel like that and dare anybody to bother me. And by the way, a trucker's wallet will only hold about, really stuff it. It'll hold about $5,000 in $100 bills. And so once you get change, you've got more bills and less money, and you don't have room for all that. You got to pocket some of it. So I would come down and catch a bus because I had love for the country and I love to see the scenery. And I'd go cross country. I've done it several times since was into money, and I'd go coast to coast. Back then, I don't remember what it cost. It was a lot then, but it maybe $100 and something, and so it's a little cheaper than flying, not always, but it has become dangerous. There are so many crazy people in this world now, and so many things going on with people. You really have to be alert. Well, I was younger and stronger the last time I did this. But like I said, it's probably been 30 something years since I remember going cross country on a Greyhound. Well, I'm about to do it again. I need to save every dime I can until I get back to work. I need to keep moving around and recuperating for a while, maybe another month or two, a little longer if I have to. And I've got some very good possibilities for work coming up. Nothing's ever a guarantee, but some of the old jobs I used to do, there's work coming up, and it looks very good. I can get back in on some of that. There's welding work all over the country, and the work I'm used to doing, I don't have to show up and have everything. All I have to do is have my welding equipment, some of my fitting equipment, my clothing, a little special fireproof stuff, and Bilbo overalls and a welding hat. I've wore this thing for 50 years now, by the way. This coming November will be 50 years I've been a welder, and I'm proud of that. That's the lifespan of a welder usually isn't quite that long. I've given it some breaks through the years. Take a little while off and take a breather, literally. Anyway, got some work coming up out on the West Coast, somewhere out that way, or up in Alaska, and it's all looking pretty good. All I got to do is be able to be on my feet for 10 or 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still weld, and I can do that. So that's my plan. I'm going to go to Seattle, Washington, and settle in there until I'm completely better. There's work in Seattle coming up. There's work in Ketchikan, Alaska, and there's work in Toledo, Ohio. There's work in Mississippi, or as they say in Mississippi, and Louisiana and Alabama, I think, and possibly Florida. Actually, there is work in Florida. It's a bad place. I don't want to work there. It's a really nice yard, and way too many bad people run it. and I left there with a bad taste in my mouth. It was easy. I did really good. I came down with the COVID, and what they came to me and told me was that the computer, I had missed 10 days, and the computer kicked me off their system, and I had to come back and reapply. And all that was is they wanted me to work local and not pay me as much on the hour. They wanted to pay me local, and they didn't want to pay me the per diem. It would have really cut into my paycheck. And they think that they can get people to move to Florida from all over the country by doing that. They get you there, they put you in a bind, they tell you, well, we have to get rid of you, but bring me your resume, and then you'll retest again, you'll hire right back in. And they don't tell you, if you don't know, they don't tell you, you're going to make a lesser hourly pay, a lot less, and you're going to make no per diem. And per diem is really where I rake in the money and the overtime. And so that's why I do this kind of work. They've got a van usually that'll take you to work. There's always a way to get there. You don't have to worry about that. They'll help you get a place to stay, take the first 2 weeks out of your paycheck. It's a really good system, and it's for places all over the country when they don't have enough craftsmen. They bring them in from around the country. And it's not the easiest in the world because the locals don't like you. They don't like it that you're making, your take-home pay is probably twice what theirs is. More than twice. If they're taking home $900 or $1,000 a week, and the locals will sell you, well, that's good for local, but no, it's really not enough. And then they have to hire more people in. Well, guess what? I take home $2,400 or more a week working that way, but I'm working for a different company that gathered me and sent me to them. They're paying that company a lot more money than that, and I'm willing to bet it's twice that. So if they're paying me $2,500 a week, they're paying that company $5,000, around that, $5,000 a week. They're paying them to provide me. And so it has its difficulties, but it's worth it. Keep your head down, you work, you make sure you stay busy, you do good work, you're there every day that you can be, and you do good work, and just don't get into their politics. Kind of have to avoid people, don't get into anything personal, and work. You go home when you get off work, you take a shower, you watch TV for about 10 minutes, and you go to sleep because you worked so hard, you're so tired, and you sleep till it's time to get up. Don't forget to set your alarm clock. You get up the next morning, you have a decent breakfast, you drink 2 cups of coffee, and get all wired up and crazy, and go to work again. I did that for years and years and years. I did that for over 30 years, and all over the country, and in many places in the world. And it has provided me with tons and tons and tons of money. And guess what? Brings me to now, I don't have any money. I spent it all, and you know what? I did that on purpose. I knew I had that choice to make. And so what I did was, I said, okay, I can be a miser, or I can enjoy my life while I'm young. And I did. I spent and I have to say, I enjoyed it. I wasted it. I do kind of regret not saving some of it. I could have saved better, but as it was, I always knew I could go back and do it again. And I could go from $0 and flat broke and just got nothing, and make a phone call. Sometimes you got to make 2 or 3 phone calls, a couple hours out of whatever day you choose to do it, and within the next 2-3 days, you're on a plane. They're flying you. Some companies pay for it. Some of them make you pay them back for that. But they'll fly you out there, and you don't have a nickel in your pocket. I've done that so many times. Or, you've got a little money, but you want to hold on to it and take care of snacks and whatever in case there's an emergency. So yeah, I've lost count of how many times I've done it. I went over to the Middle East. I left Alaska in 1991, I believe it was. I had worked 11 months and 22 days, and out of that 11 months and 22 days, I had 4.5 days off. I worked 15 hours a day. Sometimes, one time I worked over 24 hours nonstop. I didn't get a break, and that's the way it is in remote Alaska. You work when you can work, when it's there. It's got to be done. Doesn't matter how bad the weather is. You can be in a hurricane type blizzard and freezing cold and dangerous, 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts and everything you can think of, raining sideways and snowing flakes as big as your hand. You work. If the work is to be done, it's there. You work, and you don't get rained out like you do down in Georgia or maybe in Texas. So anyway, it's a really good way for people, for a craftsman. There's a lot of people who just don't know it's there, or maybe they're not quite brave enough to go do that. Go do it. You'll do fine. And they've got a few safety nets for you. Like, you get there, you don't have any grocery money, they'll give you a card. There's a lot of the guys, they party, they drink too much, they excuse me, they consume things that cost lots of money and misbehave a little bit if they've got money. So what they do is they won't hand them cash, or they'll lose them right off the bat after they've paid their airfare. So they'll give them two $100 grocery cards, debit, whatever, debit cards, and they can go to the grocery store and use it just like a regular, like a bank card. And so you've got groceries for your first 2 weeks. After your first 2 weeks, you've got your paycheck, an enormous paycheck. And what I was getting to by saying all that is, you go in, you got $0. 3 weeks later, let's say 4 weeks, 1 month in, you've received 3 paychecks. And if you're really sharp and do like I do, I may not be really sharp, but I act like I am. And I eat out of the grocery store. A lot of the guys, all of a sudden, they've got all this money, and they're like, oh, I can go to the Texas Roadhouse, or I can go to, what's it, Red Lobster or something. You can. But why? You're going to drop $70, $80, $90 at Red Lobster, or some other place that maybe $50, $60, at least $40-something after the tip. Yeah, you go to Denny's, you're gonna spend $40, and why do that when you can go to Walmart grocery store, local, take your bags of groceries home, and live on less than $100 a week, and eat good for that $100 a week. So if you make, let's say your take home pays $2,400, and your rent, you found a reasonable hotel that's kind of nice, safe enough, quiet enough, that's going to be about an average of about $300, I'd say minimum $300 a week. And then you've got 100 a week groceries, and set aside another 100 or even 200, call it 200, a couple hundred a week in a secret spot in your wallet, and you can still save. And I want you to hear this: you can save about $1,800 a week if you do that. And me, I can actually save a little more than that, because I take my canned foods. Chef Boyardee is still about $1 a can, And Campbell's, the big chunky soups, $2.48 all over the country. So that's a whole meal. And that and a bottle of water or some soft drinks, add $1 to that. You're eating as cheap as you can, but still filling yourself up. And the goal is to save as long as that job lasts. And I can take a 3-month job like that and leave out some of them. I can leave out with $25,000 or $30,000 in my bank account. And maybe I like to keep about, well, I like to keep about $4,000, $5,000 in cash that I can get a hold of quick, not in the bank. Don't necessarily want to carry it on you all the time, but keep it so you can get your hands on it. Hide it somewhere safe and keep it so you can get your hands on it. You never know what can happen. For example, West Coast, subject to earthquakes and emergencies. The Philippines is the worst place I think I've ever been as far as natural disasters. You can literally be riding out a typhoon, a bad one. Not only are you in the typhoon with the winds, destructive winds, but it floods. In certain areas, it floods really bad and it can be life-threatening. Then, because of that, you've got landslides going on. You have earthquakes all the time. And where my home is, now I don't want you to think I'm a complete idiot. I didn't know this going over there. I didn't know there were that many volcanoes over there that are active. I actually live about less than 30 miles from one very active volcano, and it's dangerous. It acts up all the time. It's called Taal, Taal, Taal. Then the one to the north of me is probably, I'm going to say, from where I am right now, it's probably maybe 70 miles away. I hope it's that far. It may be a little closer. It's not less than 50 miles to the north. And hopefully, I've got to look it up and measure it. But so I'm in between two very active. The one in the north is Pinatubo, something like that. And then Taal to the south. And there's other ones that are extinct all over the bloody place and not very far away. There's a super volcano right off the coast on the backside of Luzon. They said it's the largest super volcano by far on planet Earth. And if it were to blow, it'd take out Japan, the Philippines, Taiwan, and probably the west coast of the United States and South America and Alaska. So it is subject to a little worrisome disasters, and you can literally have them all going on at the same time. And so it happens. It doesn't always happen, but it's more often than you want it to if you're going to live there. And I guess they get used to it. Anyway, you need to have some emergency money. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work out for the next few weeks and able to get around as much as I can, as best I can. And I'm going to have an adventurous little Greyhound bus ride from Corpus Christi, Texas to Seattle, Washington. And I'm going to secure a place to stay and eat well while I'm there, continue to shoot videos and sightsee and exercise until I am both strong enough to make it through at least a 10-hour shift on my feet, welding and fitting, and of course the jobs come open. And so there's at least 2 coming open out that way very soon. I'm sure there's others that I don't know about. I'd probably have to go into a different company, which I don't want to do. these are really good paying jobs as far as I'm concerned, you know. And I can probably save, I'd say, $1,800 to $2,000 every week. So every week that I stay, I put that aside. And that's good money, really good money. I don't know anybody else that can do that. That makes a lot more money. They can't save that much money. And so I legally am drawing Social Security. I'm 68, and I can work all I want to, and it doesn't affect anything. It's okay for me to make all the money I want. And so I'm in a good position now once I get where I can stand up a little longer during the day. And I can also save my part of the Social Security and still send her money to live on, that 40,000. I'll probably up her about 10,000 and probably give her about 50,000 pesos a month to live on. And that actually gives her a lot of spending money just to buy whatever she wants, like we were doing before. Our budget of $1,450 a month paid all of our bills and gave us plenty of spending money. You know, more than $200 a piece, or about $200 a piece to just spend any way we wanted. Order stuff. I like tools and I like to make things, so I was always doing that and spending money. And then, you know, there's restaurant money and so forth. So we had plenty of money just on Social Security, but it's a good idea to save back up while I can, while the work's here, and get us ahead. I want to buy another scooter. I went through about, I think, 3 scooters in the 3 years I've been going over there, and I stayed almost 2 years solid last time. But I've been through a few scooters. I want to get a good, probably an ADV 160. That's just plenty enough scooter. That's like having a Harley over here. It really is. That's all you need. Matter of fact, most people don't. They buy like a 125 scooter, and you'll see 4 or 5 people. They're not as big as we are. You see 4 or 5 people in that thing, and no helmets. People sitting backwards on it. So yeah, an ADV it actually feels like like a motorcycle, and it handles really good. It's strong. It gets really good gas mileage. I remember it's over 100 miles per gallon. If you convert it from liters, it's about 100 and something miles, a little over 100 miles per gallon, and that's really good. And you buy a few liters every now and again, and it's not a huge place. And so what running around you got to do, if you're just doing local, it's way more than enough for what you need. And so that's the plan. I'll go to Seattle, and I'll either stay there and work, or I'll catch a flight when they tell me the work comes open. Catch a flight up to Ketchikan, Alaska, possibly some other place. And if I'm not well enough at that point, I've still got the option of Toledo. They love me in Toledo, and if there's enough work and it works out, that would be in about the end or middle of January of next year, which is fine. And I could just work till almost April and come back with about 15,000 from that job. If they haven't given a raise on that, they probably have by now. But if not, I can certainly save 15,000 or more, maybe as much as 18,000, but I can count on at least 15,000 in my pocket as I travel back to the Philippines. So either way you look at, I've got a really good plan, a really good idea, and a great adventure coming up. So let me stop this just for a second. You might need to change the scenery. Well, the thing is just sitting and talking can be a little boring when I'm telling you about an exciting idea. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be having a cross-country adventure and halfway around the world adventure and going back home to my wife. And there's not a better story than that. So what I want you to do is plan on staying tuned, share it with other people, and get them watching this, and you're going to see a pretty good bunch of videos. I'm going to try to make a short one and a long one every week. So that's 2 videos a week. And once I get moving, get on the Greyhound and head out, maybe a couple of long videos a week till I get back to the Philippines, and then I'll probably drop back to about 1 a week or maybe more. So there's a lot of adventure coming up and a lot of things going on. I've got really good plans, and everybody loves a success story. We don't know if I'll make it or not. An adventure has danger and has failure and then success. And so this isn't scripted. I've got a plan. I'm going to try to follow that plan, and we'll see how good I do. But I've had adventures, like I said, my whole life. And I've been doing this kind of thing, except for the last 2 years, for over 30 years now. And like I said, I went from Alaska to the Mideast back in 1991. I didn't finish telling that story. I had $15,000 in my pocket when I left out. I landed in, let's see, before I left, the day before I left, the new guy that they hired in to run our crane flipped our big crane. We had a really big crane for lifting things on and off the ships and other things for construction and so forth. And I was getting ready to fly out, walking around with my camera. Well, he flipped the crane and it fell in the water. He was on the driveway to the dock, and the crane was straight up and down almost and fell exactly in the water in between the ship and my welding shop. Dead center in between, didn't hurt anything but the crane. And the spool of cable that he was moving was really heavy, and he I don't know what he did wrong, but he flipped it and broke the crane. And so that was a little exciting. I got that on. So that started my trip. I flew out, everything was froze over and iced over and snowed over and 10 feet deep of snow. I flew out, went down to Seattle. That was beautiful to get down there, and flew the Arctic route from Seattle to London, England. I think that's Heathrow Airport. And goodness gracious, that was a big airport. And I caught one of the black double-decker buses. Come to think of it, I don't know that it was black. I said that because I've got black taxi cabs that you don't want to take. They're very expensive. They are extremely expensive. It's unbelievable. A short ride from the airport to downtown where Hyde Park is. I think it's Hyde Park. About $200. So right at $200. So I took a bus, which was $9, and in my book, that's expensive for a bus ride, but it was kind of neat. Pretty scary. You're driving on the wrong side of the road. And I went up to the top of the double-decker, and that was a good view. And rode into close to London Bridge. There's Hyde Park, and then my hotel was straight across the street from the park. It was a cheap hotel. It had a black and white old TV. It had antique furniture, not because they were being stylish, but because it was a really old-ass hotel. And that's what they still had after all those years. They still had the same furniture and stuff. It was just old. And it wasn't horrible. It was clean enough, but it looked like Grandma's house from 1942. It was really old looking. And so that was probably, I think, $90 a day, the equivalent of $90 a day. I still don't remember how many pounds that was, but probably 45 pounds. And I thought, oh, I'm equating that to dollars. No, you double it, or more maybe now, but back then you more than double double pounds, and that's what it is in dollars. If they say, oh, it's 100 pounds, it's 200 something dollars. It's crazy. I spent in London. I purposely routed myself where back then you could do this. I don't think you can do this anymore. Usually not in most cases. I understand, but back then, what I did was I asked the travel agent. I actually personally knew the girl, and so she scheduled my holdover longer than it had to be. I wanted at least a couple of days in London, and thank God I didn't get it. I got 36 hours. That was $1,000 I spent in London in 36 hours, counting the $200 that it cost me to go from the hotel back to the airport in the black taxi cab that I told you not to drive right in. So $1,000 is a lot to spend in a day, and I don't know how it could have gotten any cheaper being touristy there. I spent a lot of money, and it was great. Though it was beautiful, historical buildings. You walk in and they're dated, and you'll see a plaque or a chiseling of stone somewhere, and it'll say it'll have the date that it was built, that stone was put there, and it'll say 1109. That's not the number of the building. That was the year the building was built. It's usually the stepping stone that when you go in the entrance, and sometimes they'll have a little brass plaque because they don't have that anymore for whatever reason, or maybe didn't ever have it. But they'll tell you, this building's 800, 900 years old. This thing over here is a couple thousand years old. The castle's 400 years old. It's really neat, and it's worth going. But most people, I don't think, can afford to stay there for a real long time. I guess if you go into a backpacker, youth hostel type place, and you don't mind a bunk bed with people you don't know, and you're backpacking around, yeah, you can do it cheaper than $1,000 a day, but it's still more than a lot of people want to spend. So if you ever go to London, it's expensive. I flew out of there, glad I went, glad I was leaving. And I landed in Ben Gurion Airport. It's a long flight, really long flight. And Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, Tel Aviv. And it was like another planet. It was really different. And I spent right at 4 months. I don't know the exact amount of time, but it was right at 4 months. I think it was a little more than 3.5 months that I lived in Israel. And I went with the option to stay if I wanted to. I had plenty of money to get started. I could have bought an apartment, literally plenty of advertisements for apartments for sale for $4,000, $4,000 or $5,000, starting at that price. And those weren't horrible. They were Israel third world apartments. They were fine. And I'm the kind of person, I can live third world, or I can go no star, I can go 5-star. I don't care. And a lot of times I'll show up in a place and I've got $10, $12, $15,000 in my pocket. I got access to 8 or 10 more in the bank account. I got all this stuff somewhere, and assets, I'll call them. And I'll check in for 2 days in a 5-star, and that's very expensive. And I'll go in there looking like a working man, staying in a 5-star hotel. I don't care, and I'll enjoy gold-plated shower heads and gold-plated toilet seats for a couple of days. Magnificent views on the 30th story up, and 2 days later I can be staying in a $4 a day youth hostel and don't care. Actually, that was Mexico City, and I wound up not staying there, but across the street from the youth hostel, which I don't remember the name of, there was a hotel called, I believe it was the Texas Hotel, I think, and it was $10 a day. It was not. It was actually pretty nice. It had inside balconies because the air quality is not that great. If you're outside in Mexico City, it's pretty much auto fumes and smoke and that sort of thing, toxic. Sometimes the volcano near there will stink it up a bit and it smells like sulfur. And so if you're on the inside and the balconies are all facing each other on the inside, you've got an open upper roof. It can actually rain through there on the inside. I don't know how it drains, but everything's facing to the inside, and then you've got your balcony, and you can go back in and close your curtains if you want to. So that was pretty good. $10 a day, and it had a really nice enough. Wouldn't know how to give it on the star system, but it was good. It was clean. It wasn't like broken and dirty and stained or anything like that. No bugs. It was quiet enough. Curiously enough, I did find out that women in Mexico say the same thing as women in Israel in the throes of passion. I probably shouldn't tell this, but it's kind of funny. Middle of the night, and you hear noises, young lovers in their rooms nearby, and in Mexico they say, "Oi, oi, oi, oi," and which is like oh, I guess. And then in Israel, they say the same thing. They say, "Oi, oi, oi." And having told that, I've got to tell this story. I'm probably responsible it's an immaculate conception. I didn't touch any of them, and I'm probably responsible for at least 3 children being born in the world. Conceived in the, what was the name of that? Youth hostel in Jerusalem. King David Youth Hostel. And in my room, I was the only one on that floor. It was a couple's floor, but that's where they had to put me. And when I got there was nobody else staying there. And after I've been there for a while, there was couples moved in and stayed for however long they were going to be there in all the rooms around me. Walls are thick, but the doors are thin, and you can hear everything. Well, the bed was flimsy as plywood and a stand it was on and a little thin mattress. But it was good enough for me to leave my gear because I was always outside doing something, traveling around, seeing things, getting into things and taking pictures and buying souvenirs and just really not there most of the time. When I came in, I would go there to sleep and take a shower. In the community shower, it was co-ed. And you'll be in there showering, and some girl will walk right in on you, and excuse me, oh my gosh, and we'll come back in 10 minutes, I'll be through. And it's just, that's the way it was. And so I was laying in bed one day. It was daytime, just lounging, which was rare for me during the day. And I decided I was going to start doing stomach crunches. And so I started doing stomach crunches, and the headboard of the bed, and the bed was moving. It was not solid, and it was creaking and bouncing up against the wall. Bump, ba-da bump, ba-da bump, ba-da bump, ba-da bump. And a few minutes later, I heard exactly the same sound coming from the room next door. And a few minutes after that, if it was even that long, the room next to that one. And then all the rooms, there were 3 of them that had people in them. The the beds were bouncing off the wall. And you could hear 3 different women saying the same thing. They were saying, oi, 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 oi. It's a bad story, I know. Hey, if you're 9 years old, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, and it's just, forget about it. So, anyway, I thought it was really funny that they thought that I was doing something I wasn't doing. I was just exercising by myself in the bed doing stomach crunches. And of course, they were all being prolific and almost said procrastinating, procreating, and having more fun than I was, I'm sure. So anyway, I may actually be responsible for the increase of the population of Israel, or whatever country they were from. And I thought that was funny anyway. So life is a good adventure, and I'm just on the edge of another one taking off. You do have your downtime, and I needed to recuperate. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. If I had to, I could leave out today limping. I'd be all right. I'd be uncomfortable, but even that's getting better a little bit every day. And I look forward to my next adventure. And there was a man I used to work for up in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. And I doubt he'll ever see this. You never know. His name is Dan Magone. And he owned, if he doesn't still own, Magone Marine. And he owned a salvage yard, and he owned a ship called, he bought it after I was working for him for a while. Matter of fact, it was after I had stopped working for him and went to work for Offshore Systems Incorporated there in Dutch Harbor. But he owned the Jehovah Jireh, this huge ship, and he used it for his diving gear and for welding equipment and to house people in, and I don't know what else, as a dock area and so forth. But pretty smart man, and he had become a Christian. I heard rumors that he wasn't always a Christian, kind of like me. And so I admired that. And even though I wasn't a Christian at the time that I was working for him, I wanted to be. And I admired him for his Christianity and for his braveness for doing what he was doing. He's from California originally. He moved out to Alaska, and I'm sure at this point he's a multimillionaire. He became a millionaire when I first started working for him. He banked his first million. So he's a very interesting fellow. Anyway, he would have a meeting on some days, early in the morning, call everybody together. He's a very pleasant fellow, and pretty pleasant. And he'd smile and say, okay. After he gave instructions, he'd say, okay, now let's go see what God has in store for us today. I never forgot that. And Albert Einstein said, we don't really have original ideas. You're lucky if you have one original idea. I forgot what his was, E equals MC squared or whatever. But maybe I can't remember which theory it was that he said was his original idea. But he says, you take bits and pieces from other people. And maybe he said, if I have seen far, Albert Einstein said this, if I have seen far, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And even though he said it plural, he probably meant it more than anybody else for Isaac Newton and his theory of relativity. And he went beyond Isaac Newton with that, far beyond. And he said, if I've seen far, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. So, anyway, Albert Einstein said there is a God. And so even he believed that there was a God. He says there's order in the universe. And he also said that we don't have an original idea, that we glean things from other people around us. And that we become a little bit of all the people that we've known and we've learned from. And so from Dan McGone, that's one thing I picked up. Let's see what God has in store for us today. And I see that God is better at planning things for me than I am. And sometimes I may be fearful or dreading something or sad and brokenhearted because of things. But sometimes He lets it get that way and steers you in a direction by using things like that. And if you'll keep Him in mind and you belong to Him, it's going to turn out for the good. It's going to turn out for the better for you, and there's a good reason for it. So, okay, I'm not going to have a place to stay. Move on. And that's what I'm going to do. Much as I love my grandbabies, and I'm going to miss them, I want to tear up so bad right now. But I'm going to miss them bad. Love them very much. But I do have to move on. I've got a wife in the Philippines. I'm going back home to my wife. Whatever happens after that, I want God to be in charge of that. I've not been the best at planning things. When I sidetrack and I just say, I'm going that way, I don't care if God wants me over there. I want to go over here and see this. It gets rough. And it may not be that I made a bad decision. I think I would be dead if I had not come back stateside and gotten the test done and discovered certain problems that I won't say what they were, but I had internal injuries and internal problems that made me very sick. And if that hadn't have been seen and told to me, I wouldn't have done what I did, and I would have most likely have died. And if I would have stayed in the Philippines and never known that, I would have surely been dead by now for several months. I would not have survived this because I'm still recuperating from that. I'm still in horrible pain from it. And I'm really lucky. I think I came within days of dying. And having lost 60 pounds in just a matter of weeks, yeah, I was wasting away. That's not normal weight loss. I had a lot of toxic stuff in my system and I was shutting down. So, didn't make a bad choice. I made a quick choice and I came here and I got to see my grandkids. And it's been priceless. It really has. So, but it's about time to go back and be with my wife. We'll see what God's got in store. I have no idea. But good things will come from this. I'll money back up. I'll have plenty of cush. I'll have money in the bank. I'll have extra money to give my wife so she can, make some things buy some things she wants to buy without asking me for money. And I want to start a small business that will increase our income. Get this. Next year, we get an increase of, I think it's right at 4.1%. I believe that's what they said. A COLA increase. That will put me at a little over $1,500 a month. In the Philippines, that's a sweet spot. That's plenty. Especially me having been there for a while, I know exactly how to handle that. And I do want to move up and get a 2-story house on a lot of land and it fenced in and gated, so I don't have to deal with neighbors that sing at 3 o'clock in the morning and stagger around and talk too loud and get drunk on the weekends and smoke cigarettes right in front of my window and stink my house up. That sort of thing. I have some privacy and a place to put my gear. I can do a project and lay it down, go in the house for an hour, take a nap, come back out and start working again. Don't have to worry about hiding all my tools because somebody will swipe them. So we want a nicer place. Plus, we're in a flood-prone area, and a couple of times a year it usually floods knee deep in the apartment, and that it rises that much. It could rise higher. I don't know that it ever has, but if that dam broke, it might even wash the whole place away and be fatal. I don't know. I don't want to find out. Plus, the walls are getting cracks in them, which tells me that there's earth movement and some stress building up there. It's on a earthquake, don't know what to call it, line. I saw it on the map, and they're showing all the fracture zones. It's on a smaller fracture zone, and there's been some sizable earthquakes right there. But the cracks have come since the last earthquakes when I was there. And opening up a little bit, they're getting worse. There's pressure building. Well, just off the coast, there's I forgot what it's called, but the Manila Rift or whatever it is. And they said it hadn't slipped in over 500 years. And they expect it to be, from the pressure that's there, over 9 on the Richter scale. Well, oddly enough, I just happened to tune into these things. I've lived up in Alaska altogether for, even going back and forth. If you add all the time up that I was in Alaska, it's about 26 years out of 68 years of my life has been in Alaska. So that's a long time. And so 26 and a half years. And I'm familiar with earthquakes. And so I try to be up on where they're expecting, where the pressure's building. Anchorage is not in the best spot in the world right now. I can't remember all the places, but off of Dutch Harbor, they're expecting in excess of an 8. There's a place out there, somewhere in that area, they're expecting a 9 or more. And there's a lot of places they're expecting a 9 or larger. They just had, it was this year, a 9.1 off the coast of part of Russia, up north of where I live in the Philippines there, way up north, pretty far up above Japan, and near a volcano there. Can't remember the name of the place, I'm getting old. But that was a 9.1. They had a 9 something in, was it Venezuela? That was probably within a few weeks ago. And seems like they had, I don't remember, it was an 8 or a 9 somewhere in the Mideast area. So all over the world, they're getting worse. And off the coast of Seattle and Vancouver, off of Vancouver Island, from Northern California up into above the United States, there off the coast of Canada. I don't think it goes as far as Ketchikan, but there's a fault line there, and they're expecting a 9.1 or more. They said it can be a lot more. They said it can be a lot more than what they've been saying. And they've been saying a 9, at least a 9. When that gives, it's built up so much pressure. And I can remember back in 1989 when I went to Seattle, Washington, the first time to go up to Alaska. They were talking about, it's called Cascadia Subjection Zone or something. Cascadia. And that fault line has been building up pressure. Even then, in 1989 and 1990, they were talking about it, and they said the mountain range is rising rapidly and increasing in speed. And even then, it would have been a hugely catastrophic earthquake. And it was so bad that they were still in the process of the older buildings, not all of them, but the ones that could afford to be done, they were rebuilding, working the support systems. It's amazing to see some of that, how they would crisscross these really huge beams inside of buildings that already existed. Now, I used to stand structural steel and do the original structure. But they went inside an existing structure with all the work done, completely dried and cleaned, and been in use for years. And they cut holes, and then how they got some of those beams in place, I don't know. It must have been dropped in completely from the top all the way down and moved over. I really can't think my way through it. That's got to be expensive. But they did it because they wanted to save those buildings, because they know it's coming. It's going to be absolutely catastrophic. And down in Chinatown, there's all these old buildings that are well over 100 years old, and they've not increased the support. The bricks are just kind of, it didn't look that good to start with, how well they were put together. And they're flimsy by today's standards without being in an earthquake zone. Those things are coming down completely. And they're nice when they talk about it. They'll say, well, we may lose hundreds of people. Well, they've got to know better than that. It's not going to be hundreds. I don't think it's going to be thousands. I think from Northern California to Vancouver, Vancouver, Canada, you're going to see tens of thousands of people die from the earthquake and the tsunami that'll come in afterwards. And Seattle's pretty far in. It's separated by a landmass, but the water's still going to come up. It's like, it'll be more like an extremely high tide, but more than just a few feet. It's going to be really high, and it's going to flood. And there's people in these collapsed buildings, and so that's what they're looking at. This is happening all over the world, and especially around the Ring of Fire. So it's certainly an exciting time. If you're faint of heart, the Bible says that in these last days that men's hearts will fail them for fear of the things that are happening in the earth. I can see that. I remember we had an earthquake. I was in Sandpoint, Alaska. I had my own welding rig out there, and I was doing something to the trailer that I had my Lincoln 200 on, and I heard a squeaking noise. And what it was my trailer and my welding machine was rocking. And I'm like, what? And it got worse and worse, and I looked over at the house, and the whole island was shaking hard. I don't remember. I think they said it was a 6.5. It was at least a 6 something. And that was pretty good. I've been in a lot that were 6. I've been in 5.5s and 5s. A 5 is more than I want to be in. We had a 5 in Dutch Harbor. I believe that was my first one that I was aware of that I was in. And I was sitting in a chair with my chair pushed back, rocking in it on the back 2 legs. And all of a sudden I went to go back, and I caught myself, and you could hear the rocks under the earth clacking together. You could hear the rumble of it coming, and it got louder. It's kind of like a roll of thunder. And then the ground rolled and moved and jolted, and you could hear a clacking noise. And that's what it had to have been, was the clacking of the boulders and the stone in the earth. It wasn't that long of an earthquake, but it was a good sudden jolt and some rocking. And I had a sudden kind of a quick burning sensation, because my heart skipped a beat, and it hurt a little bit. And it didn't continue to hurt. I was fine a couple seconds later, except for startled. I was still in a startled state. But I can see where that sort of thing, and there's a phenomenon, and there again, I don't know the name of it, but I don't remember the name of it, but there is a phenomenon where people die, and it's common. When they have the sudden fear of when the earthquake hits, it startles them so badly they die of a heart attack. So it looks like we may be about right there. And I say, bring it. I don't want to see bad things happen, but I want to see all this over with. I want to see the Lord return. I hope I get to see that. And if I live until his return, I will be most grateful. And I don't think it's that much longer. In the meantime, we've got living to do. We've got things to do. There's works to do. And don't get me wrong. I have not arrived. I still struggle with things. I've got a little bit, not a bad temper, in general, but if somebody purposely agitates me or accuses me falsely, I'm real touchy about that. Some people I care about what they say. And some people I could care less and I just walk away. But sometimes I still do get mad when I shouldn't. I find it difficult. The Bible says that we should love our enemies and pray for them. That's hard. And I do it sometimes, and sometimes I really wrestle with that one. And I need to get myself mentally adjusted where I just don't let... I'm conscious of the fact that they're just as ignorant as I am. And if I'm going to excuse me for the bad things that I have done and still do on occasion some things, then I've got to realize they've got a blind spot or two themselves, and that's what theirs is, and just go on and pray for them. Some people, it's a spiritual thing, and they may be under demonic oppression, not necessarily possession, but sometimes temporarily possessed. Drug use and drinking, I believe, can bring on temporary possession. You give it up. You don't want to be who you are. You don't want to be conscious. You don't want to feel like you feel. You want to check out. You do drugs, you drink, and I think you have problems from that because you may be under demonic influence. That's a strange thing to talk about for a lot of people. I don't really get into that a whole lot, but I will mention it. It's real. I've seen the evidence of it my whole life, a lot. And so, but it freaks some people out. I remember I was talking to one Christian couple and I was telling them about God blessing me and trying to be a good Christian and everything, and how God he's always good, no matter if I am or not. And they said, well, praise God. And then I mentioned something spiritual and about demons and how things can go wrong and they can cause you problems. And they said, well, I don't know about all that, but praise God. And so the Bible says that some people will have a form of godliness but deny the power thereof. And so you run into that. You just have to worry more about yourself as far as getting right with God. I have a responsibility, and I've shared with my grandbabies. The youngest one is under 3. She's not 3. And I tell her, thank you, Jesus, for another day. She can't talk yet, and she's getting there, but she's heard it. And my oldest is 13, and she's priceless. I love her to death. I love both of them very much. And I've told her that, and I taught her scriptures to memorize. And I believe I've taught her about all I could. She's seen my bad side. She's seen bad things about me. She knows. And I don't advertise it, but I don't completely hide it either. Let her know I'm human. But I tell her about God. And so I've done what I could, I think. And we need to do that until the Lord returns. So it's getting exciting. The adventure continues, and there's a lot to come in the next few months, and even past that. I'll see to it that there's things going on and that I'm very active and do things that are interesting. and exciting in these last days. So I think that's about it for today. And expect the videos in the future to have a little bit more action in them, a little bit better scenery. And I may even do some walk and talks where I film other things and don't have my mug on the screen, and I can just dub in what I have to say. If I have anything to say, I might just put music. So for today, I think that's it. And I'm going to do another little clip of my wife here at the end. And for now, I'm going to say until next time, let's see what God has in store for us. Please do like and subscribe. It helps a lot. I need to grow and monetize. I'm not going to hide that. I want to do that. And it helps if you like the video for you to hit the like button. And if you will subscribe, it helps me a lot too. So until next time, this is Amazing Days of Michael and Miriam.
Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon. Magtupi tayo ng ating mga damit, mga pambahay. It's for their clothes. Ang dami kasi nagkakalat. Kita nyo guys, ang dami kong kalat. Mga pambahay, mga damit. Tupi tayo ng mga kalat natin. Magbawas tayo. Mga damit guys. Simpleng buhay, hindi alay. Daming kalat. Hey sweetheart, please come home early. Please come back, I'm waiting of you. I love you, I miss you. Please come home, sweetheart.